right. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of A Fresh Perspective with Jeff Charles, where we prefer truth over narrative and principles over politics. And I've got another great guest for you today, although I wish the subject matter wasn't what it is, but we're going to get to that in just a second. But before I bring on my guest, just got to remind you to like this, to share this, and also subscribe if you haven't already. Also, check out my Substack. It's called Chasing Liberty. You can access that at libertychasers.com. Become a subscriber there. Support my work. Appreciate it very much. Now that I got that stuff out of the way, I'm going to get to something more important. Now, if you guys have followed me for any length of time, y'all know that I focus a lot on local politics, local government, state level as well. I know that we all get entranced by the federal government and all that jazz. We just had an election, right? But as I always say, if you're going to run into government corruption, chances are it's going to be because of your local government or maybe state level. Chances are you're not going to get harassed by the FBI. If you're going to get harassed, it's going to be at your local level. However, in this case, my guest is one of the unlucky ones who have been harassed by the federal government. I'm going to bring him on right now. I have with me Mr. Mark Chapa, an activist and Second Amendment advocate whose home was just raided by the Bureau for Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives. Welcome to the program, brother.
Hey, brother, how you doing? Thanks for having me, Jeff.
Thanks for coming on. This story is very important. But before we get into everything that went down, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do, what you're about, all that good stuff.
All right, well, I'm Mark Chapa. I am a community activist. Also, I'm an advocate for our Second Amendment. I'm boots on the ground. I'm with the community. I'm full-time in the schools, trying to change the narrative, trying to educate urban communities and all walks of life on survival skills, firearm safety and awareness, teaching our youth how to de-escalate and teaching them conflict resolution as well. Um, and that's just the thing, to be honest with you. I'm a man of the people. I try to be with my community and try to pursue change.
Awesome, awesome. So here's a question. What made you get into this line of activism? Because usually, to be frank, when I think of a black activist, what we see on TV, that kind of thing, they're usually talking about police reform, which is important, education, stuff like that. I know you work in education, but not necessarily conflict resolution, gun ownership, self-defense, and things like that. So how did you get into this field?
Well, actually, I was in allegedly involved in a justified homicide. And after that whole situation and me overcoming everything with the courts and just it was a learning experience for me. It was a wake-up call. It showed me how ignorant I've been. It showed me how uneducated I was when it came to firearms and firearm rights, our constitutional rights.
Mhm.
So I started educating myself more, and I started to educate the community more. And then it became where I'm hosting events, I'm hosting workshops, and I've been walking in my journey, walking in my purpose ever since.
Awesome, awesome. So this isn't your first rodeo with the government, unfortunately, what just happened.
Absolutely not. Yep.
Gotcha, gotcha.
Yep.
So
Mhm.
I do want to talk at length about your work, but let's go ahead and discuss what happened. I think it was last week or the week before. Your home got raided by the ATF. What led to this whole thing? Can you just kind of give us the background?
Um, well, my home was raided. It was about 4 o'clock in the morning. I my wife had uh she was up, I was up. Where we get up, we work in the school system. We're in the Baltimore City school systems. So we both are in the educational space. We're up early. She usually drinks her coffee down in the living room area. And I'm usually upstairs fidgeting around or doing something to get active, to get my day going.
Mhm.
She had reached out to me and said, "Hey, Mark, there's someone outside. There's something going on outside." So I looked out the window and I'm literally watching them um crawl through my grass, I'm watching them, you know, moving very tactical in my front yard and my backyard on my doorstep. They were fidgeting with the lock, attempting to break in. Um, and so first thing comes to mind, like, I got to get my children. I got to make sure that they're up and they're not caught by surprise, because anything can happen in a situation like that where you got a no knock warrant. Seems like, or a warrant or police busting down your door, and when you wake up out of shock, you tend to not follow instructions as well
Right.
as somebody who's up and well aware of what's going on. So I wanted to make sure that they were up and that they understood what was happening. Um, so as I got the kids up, I looked outside the window and I said to the officers, "Hello, hello, we're here." I mean, there's no need for any further action from you guys. That was my mind state. But no, um, they threw a flash grenade in the living room where my wife was drinking her coffee. Yep. So
So they
that's when
they
I
they
came
have they hadn't
down.
even announced themselves or anything. They just started. They first
They,
tried to open the door.
they,
It sounds like, and then they started.
yeah, they did. Once I said hello, they started announcing themselves. They started, like, it took them by surprise. I literally was watching them. So when I finally said something, then they said, "Oh," they pointed the rifle up at me because I'm at the second story
Like,
in my bedroom. So they pointed, it was probably about 20, 30 red beams coming through my window when I said hello. And then they started announcing themselves, announcing that they have a search warrant. So then grabbed the kids. They all got behind me. My wife got behind me. And we came. My wife was disoriented, as you can imagine.
after the flashbang.
She's a school teacher, bro. So this was frightening for her. This was frightening for my children. And but I knew the best way to get out of this with everyone safe was for me to stay calm and to keep everybody else calm. So we're walking out. I walk out first. I have my hands up. There's dozens of rifles being pointed at me, and which is expected because of who I am and what I represent. I am heavily armed,
Mhm.
and I am trained. So I'm sure they they was very aware of all these things. So they're giving conflicting commands. They're telling me to walk down, come to them. Then I'm mid steps, going down my steps. They're telling me to turn around. They put me in handcuffs, of course, hands behind my back, on my knees. But as I turn around with my back facing the ATF, I can see my children, and I can see that they still have their rifles drawn on my children while they were in those with their hands up. And that is where I have a problem. And that is something that I can't ignore, and I can't silence myself, allow myself to be silenced.
Yeah, when I saw the
Um,
footage, I could hear you saying you're pointing your gun at my daughter. Why are you pointing your gun at my daughter? And when I saw that, like my blood boiled. I was already angry before that, but when I heard you say that, I was like, they're pointing a gun at a little girl. What the hell?
I have the two daughters that live with me is a 13-year-old and a 17-year-old, and they obeyed your commands. They stayed calm. They were not irrational. They were not it was an experience that they would never forget.
Hmm.
This was a trauma that they should never had to experience. Um, sometimes when you're doing your job, you just gotta start using some sort of common sense.
Right.
This is not Iraq. This is America, and we have rights, and we need to have some type of humility. Um, because that was an experience that I worked my butt off, and their mother worked their butt off. That we wanted to make sure that they never had the experience, and it had to be somebody like the ATF to point rifles at my children.
Mm.
So
So, oh, okay. So they try to come in, and then I don't remember. Did they throw the flashbang before you addressed them, or was it after? Or
the flashbang was thrown right before I said hello.
okay,
I was all the way upstairs, so it just sounded like a bunch of commotion. Once the flashbang went off, that's when everything went kind of set off.
of course.
That the I think I can't, I will have to look at the video to be honest with you.
Yeah,
Um,
and
that
that
was a yeah,
things
that
like this
was
happen. It's hard to recall because it's all in the moment. Nobody
yeah,
used to having a bunch of guns pointed at them, and
uh,
all this stuff
yeah.
happening. And
I
then
tell you what, I know who can recall. I know my wife can recall exactly when she got hit with a flashbang.
Mhm.
You know, and not to mention my son, who has his own area in our basement. Of course, they threw a flash grenade in his room as well and drew rifles on him,
Mhm.
multiple rifles. And when I was outside, they kept asking, "Where's your son? Where's your son?" It didn't dawn on me. They they obviously been investigating and doing their homework. My son is 15 years old, but he's highly trained.
Mhm.
So that's why uh, they probably met him with such force. And
They would have known.
you
Yeah, they would have known. So, okay, so you walk outside of the house, they're giving you conflicting instructions, which, as a side note, reminds me a lot of the Daniel Shaver case in Arizona. If people are watching this and you haven't heard that case, look up Daniel Shaver. You'll know exactly what I'm talking about. Conflicting instructions, except in this case, they murdered him. In Mark's case, thank God that didn't happen. So they get you down, they get you on your knees, they got you handcuffs. What happens after that?
um they searched they searched the house. We're outside. Mind you, I'm in my drawers. My
Hmm.
son is in his drawers. My oldest daughter is in her nightgown. My youngest daughter is in her pajamas, and my wife is in her pajamas. So we're outside. It's 20 degrees outside.
Yeah, this is a
We're freezing. Um, we're treated like some sort of terrorist. And I'm telling the officers, I say, you guys know that we're school teachers. You know that we're in an educational space. I'm like, if are you guys aware of these of who you're just launched this vicious, brutal attack on? I work 12 hours a day, dedicating my life to the youth. My wife does the same thing full time. So, it's heartbreaking, and to be honest, it's not so unexpected. As a black man in America that is heavily armed and is educated, I'm not going to turn a blind eye like that didn't have anything to do with this.
And you're
Obviously,
doing
they've
something
been
positive in
investigating,
your community. Yeah.
going, yep, bringing the people together, bringing all walks of life together. And their reason is because someone gave them a tip. Instead of doing their due diligence, instead of doing their own investigation, setting up, maybe staying operational, I don't know, something to just convict and try to hang an innocent man to a cross, because that's what they did.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
They assaulted.
oh, go ahead.
I was just saying, they, as a man, a father, and a protector, you you pointed your guns at my children, and that was unforgivable.
Yeah, yeah, of course. I can't even imagine how I would even react in that type of situation. But you did mention that there was a tip. Can you kind of walk us through that? Somebody just told them that you had guns, or what were they told to even
Well, I
just
can't I can't get into too much of that, but
okay.
they were looking for illegal firearms.
Mhm.
They were looking for machine guns. Um, and it was said that somebody had um said these things about me, that I had illegal firearms. And I have a lot of firearms.
Yep.
Every single one of them is Maryland compliant, registered, and I'm licensed, and permitted to have all of them. Even though all those extra steps, that is still my constitutional right. And I'm a firm believer in that is a God given right
Yep.
for someone to be armed. That is a God given right for someone to be able to protect their family. But I'm a law abiding citizen, and I don't break any laws. But I was already assumed guilty for you guys to come do my family like that.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I mean, and personally, like I don't care if you went through Baltimore's process. The Second Amendment is your license. But that being said, you did go through
yeah,
the process. You complied with
I'm,
Maryland's unconstitutional laws to make sure that
yeah,
you wouldn't get hassled. You went through all the appropriate steps, and they still rated you just based on something that
yeah.
somebody said. I mean, like you said, they didn't talk to you about it. They didn't do any like investigation. They just said, "Oh, this guy has guns," and this guy said that they were legal. Let's go point guns at his children. I just like I can't. I'm
My
laughing, but not
wife,
because it's funny. It's like it's like I can't even wrap my head around it.
yeah, my wife literally told them, you guys could have knocked on the door, and he would have. He had such a big heart. He would have showed you his gun collection, and that could have been it.
Hmm.
I am just, I am. We have nothing to hide. We're hardworking people, very hardworking people, and we have nothing to hide.
Yeah.
But to bust down my door, point guns at my children, it's unforgivable.
And so I mean, we talked on the phone a little while ago. They still haven't charged you with anything, right? They haven't. Nothing has
No,
happened since then, right?
no, they haven't charged me with anything. Um, they didn't even take any firearms, which I thought that was surprising. But yeah, for right now, as of right now, it is an ongoing investigation, and that's as much as I know
Okay,
as
so
far as the case.
so they are they still, you said they're still investigating you, or
I, as far as I'm concerned, it's still investigation.
okay. I mean, I don't know what they're investigating, but I mean, we know how this goes. So,
I don't. Yeah. I don't know either. Like I told you, they didn't take anything. So, but a phone. They took a cell phone.
okay. And do they still have the phone, or did they give it back?
They still have the phone.
Still have the phone. I just and there's been no after this. There's been no communication from them to you about the phone or about the not even my bad. I'm sorry. Nothing, or have they said anything?
Well, my lawyer has been communicating with them,
Okay.
and yeah, well, I will say that she has been communicating with them.
Okay. Okay. And, and I imagine, more details may come out later. I mean, with your lawyer dealing
Yeah.
with them. But I mean, the bottom line is you're a gun owner, you're a Second Amendment advocate. You teach at high school, right?
Yes,
High school.
yeah, I teach de-escalation and conflict resolution. I'm an intervention specialist. I'm when kids having trouble or they're you just need somebody to talk to or to fights. I mean, I am heavily involved. I am the first one on the scene. I am the educator that is relatable, and I understand. I'm there for whatever they need, mentorship.
And you coach girls soccer,
So
right?
girls are flag football, yeah.
Oh, my bad. The different kind of
Yeah,
football. I'm sorry.
girls. Yeah. Girls flag football, and yeah, no, that we, yeah.
Yeah, definitely
I,
sounds like a
I,
terrorist to me. I mean, good God.
I, I tried to explain them before they even ripped my house upside down and said, "You're not going to find anything." I said, "If you were watching me, you would know from 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. I am at the high school
Hmm.
in the educational space." I said from 3 to 7, I am coaching girls football. So that is 7 a.m. to 7 p.m.
Hmm.
When I am done coaching girls football, I am straggling to get home, to be a husband, to be a father. And then my day restarts. So there was no due diligence done. It couldn't have been.
I don't see.
Because if you noticed all these things, if you watched all these things, you would think that, say, that guy right there is just a hardworking father, hardworking husband. And we're not going to find anything, guys. I mean, I can't wrap my arms around it. I can't wrap my I'm lost for words.
Mm. How are your wife and children holding up?
Just taking it day by day. You know, um, we're just trying to keep the family together, trying to love on them and be patient, and because that was a lot. That was a lot for them. This is their safe space. This is their home. This is where they felt the safest until they don't.
Mm.
They don't. So
I mean, and if you can't answer this question, just let me know. You mentioned your lawyer. Is there going to be some type of legal action going on? Are you still waiting, or still kind of, sussing things out, or
um as far as toward me or toward them,
towards them, like a lawsuit?
I'm not gonna answer that right now.
Okay.
But like I said, these actions were unforgivable.
And for them to not even,
I can look past a lot of things in my life, but pointing firearms at my guns, that's something I would never. Pointing firearms at my children, that is something I would never. I can't forgive. I'll let God forgive you for that. It
yeah,
won't be me.
And you know that the ATF has a history of this, not even just the ATF. I mean, federal agencies. I mean, I've covered a story where local police flash banged a 2-year-old, like a toddler in the crib in Kentucky. Like I've covered those. This happens a lot. And it seems like there's rarely any, what's the word, accountability. And so
Accountability.
okay, so I'm sure that there's going to be more that comes up with this case. I know there's a lot that you can't talk about right now, and that's fine. We'll have to definitely bring
Yeah.
you back on when more stuff comes out. But I want to talk about your work now. I mean, because that's important. I mean, this is actually how I heard about you. I had heard your name before, Mark Chapa, but I had never looked into it. And I had looked on your Instagram.
Mhm.
I know you know Maj Toure, a friend of mine,
Mhm.
and I know you're
Yeah.
on the Second Amendment. What made you so when it comes to doing activism in Baltimore in your community, mostly black, well, where you are, I'm assuming.
Well, in the DMV area, DC, Maryland, Virginia, and Baltimore.
Okay.
Yeah. Even though Baltimore is in Maryland, it is separate entity. It is Baltimore. Baltimore is Baltimore. Yeah.
So, uh, so,
So, yep.
so why focus on the Second Amendment specifically? I mean, I know you do conflict resolution. I know it's not all just guns, but well, I'm
Yeah.
curious. What made you uh, gravitate towards that when it comes to your mentorship and serving the youth?
Because growing up, we didn't have that kind of education
Mhm.
in urban cities. We're not like the South. A lot of times their fathers, young boys' fathers, would take them out hunting and take them fishing. And no, we didn't. We most kids in the District of Columbia or Baltimore City never been target practicing or hunting or fishing. So that is definitely something um I felt is imperative for our youth to be educated on. Um that is something that we as black people have been so far behind on, and I felt it was time to catch up. And I felt like I have so many friends and family that are incarcerated today just merely not lack of knowledge.
Mm,
Most, especially in this area in DC, Maryland, um, most young black brothers and sisters didn't even know that this was possible, and I'll include myself.
mm,
So that is something that I um, wanted to change the narrative, and I wanted to inform the public that was in my area that hey, you know, you can get your permit, you can legally carry a firearm in the
mm.
state of Maryland. And I wanted to put emphasis on each state's self-defense laws because most people never knew about castle doctrine. Uh,
Right.
Most people never knew about DC's middle ground law, which is a self-defense law. As I stated in early in our interview, the alleged justified homicide, which you can research yourself. It was four armed gunmen uh, that robbed a vape shop, and one of them ended up being shot to death
Mm,
in self defense.
right.
And it wasn't until then where I learned about self defense laws. You know, it wasn't until after that I learned about registering firearms, getting your concealed carry permit.
Hmm.
I didn't. Uh, Nobody in my family knew what a concealed carry permit was. We didn't even know
Really.
that was a thing. Yeah, we not for us. And that was the state of mind that most young black boys were in at a particular time. And that was just a few years ago. That's about 5 years ago. So just to see how much times have changed now that we have black gunsmiths, black FFL holders, black competition shooters, black gun enthusiasts, black two-way YouTubers, and it's just a beautiful sight to see because if you look back 5 years, there were only a handful,
You are
if that.
100% right. Yeah.
You knew of Black Rambo, of course, and you knew of Colin Noir,
Yep.
and even him, which is he's highly respected in in the two-way industry,
Mhm.
but a lot of people in inner cities, urban communities can't relate to him.
Sure.
So, and it was a lot of people. It was a lot of people like that in the two-way industry. There's a lot of people in that, Black people in the two-way industry, where they weren't from the urban community, so there wasn't no relativity.
Yeah.
So, but now you got Black men uh, that clearly are from urban community, and more people are gravitating to them and becoming comfortable with getting into the firearm industry the safe way, you know, getting into the business, learning the business, and just getting educated and stop becoming firearm instructors. And I mean, it's so beautiful now. And I look at that and I say, I had something to do with that. You
Yeah.
know, I had something to do with it, and it's just, to me, it's worth the harassment. You know, it's worth the harassment because it's been harassment. Yes, they brought it to my front doorstep this time, but the government has been shutting down my 2A events. Um, they've been shutting down my workshops. And the only thing they can say why, the only reason why, is because they received a complaint.
Mm. Okay.
Again, there's no due diligence and there's no real investigation.
Okay. Yeah, I want to talk about that a little more, but before we do, I just want to let you know, like, what you're doing is so important. And I want to let my audience know that this is important because what you said about a lot of Black people not really understanding, laws surrounding guns or responsible gun ownership, it wasn't always like that. Black Americans have a very deep history of being armed, going back to even before, or not before slavery, but during slavery and beyond. And somewhere along
Yeah,
the
yeah.
line, that was lost. Now,
Hmm.
we can get into why that happened.
Yeah.
That's a whole other
Oh,
conversation.
I can I will say that I know that when the Black Panthers picked up a shotgun and marched on the Capitol in California, I knew gun laws started to change. I
Yep,
knew I'm educated enough to know that even the NRA supported these gun
they
laws
did.
when a Black man walked up to that Capitol with a shotgun
Yep.
protesting. So,
Yeah. Yeah. And that was
and I'm
definitely,
pretty sure after they got dismantled, I'm pretty sure the fear, I'm it became like you know, Black people were so afraid to even whisper about guns.
yeah.
We didn't post them. If you posted them, like, oh, they coming,
Yep.
or you gonna get locked up, or this and that and the third. So,
Yeah. I mean, and I think that was by design. I really do. Because what you mentioned, like the Mulford Act in California, that was on the Republican side, although Democrats were right there supporting it. Also, even with
mhm.
NAACP during the civil rights movement, I mean, there was still a lot of militant Black people, even that would hang out with MLK. But somewhere along the line, when certain people got involved, white liberals, they were uncomfortable with the idea of Black people being militant, arming themselves for self-defense purposes. And so they
Yep.
started the NAACP started encouraging, okay, let's tone this down a bit and go more the other way. I'm sure that they were doing what they thought was right, but that only hurt
Yeah.
us in the long run. And that's why we need folks like you. And what I like about what you do is that you talk about responsible gun ownership, but you also approach it the way I was taught. I mean, I just became a gun owner in 2021, but in the 2A community, it's not all just about shooting guns, rah, 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 go to the range, whatever. No, you're taught about, a de-escalation, conflict resolution. The gun is the last resort. And I see people like you, I see people like Mosh Teray teaching that in these areas.
Yeah.
And that is needed more than anything else. Positive
Yeah.
black men, positive role models, advocating for self-defense because the police aren't going to always be able to save you. And I fully, here's my tinfoil hat. That is why they want to shut you down. So let's get into that. So I want to know,
Yeah.
so you do these trainings, and sometimes the government gets in the way. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Oh man, well, it started about 5 years ago. When I started having these events, I threw a birthday party. I said, well, this birthday I want to educate the community.
Mhm.
I want to bring out some guns, and it was unheard of. It was unheard of. I got so much backlash, from my own community, as far as you can't bring black people together in guns. You know, that was a motivation for me because I didn't believe that. You know, I didn't believe that at all. And when I say we managed to bring hundreds of families together, hundreds of firearms together, all in one setting, and there wasn't that an argument or a peak of a disagreement, and that is when I knew that the narrative was wrong from the media, and I knew that I couldn't stop what I was doing. It was so beautiful. I said I'm not going to stop. So I ended up doing it weekly. Every single Sunday we have Choppa community. Choppa community was we pushed unity amongst all walks of life. Uh, we pushed education through workshops. We had the youth go through de-escalation. Then they moved to self-defense, was a boxing class, archery, and then they got to firearm safety and awareness. So you had to go through these steps every time you come, every time a child, anyone under 18, they had to go through each workshop before they can even fire a firearm. So we were doing it every single week. And then the government, we were getting harassed in Charles County, where the police would just show up and we will eventually get them off the property. They would show up again. They would leave. And then I was having my annual event called Choppa Day, where they sent an injunction. And on the injunction said, if you have this event, we're not only going to lock you up, but we're going to lock your wife up. And I had to fold. I couldn't risk my wife's freedom for something I'm passionate about, for something that I am, because my wife and my children, they are 110% supportive of me, supportive of what I'm doing in the community. They are there they never missed a Sunday, and we're talking about children here that understand how great of the purpose is, and they're showing up, every single Sunday when they could have been doing anything else. And I couldn't risk my wife going to jail, but that's not a price I was willing to pay. Um, so we had to stop that event. Chopper Day is when it is on my birthday that we've been doing yearly, and that is when we have hundreds of family come out. We have so many workshops. We have so much food, so many different firearms. So the gun enthusiasts, instructors, or collectors, they can come try out machine guns, just different kind of firearms. And we're having we're just having a good time, and we have people from all over the world fly in for this event. This is how big it's become, and every year it's something. So it got to the point where it's now I have to do it privately, and I have to stick and move.
Mm.
I have to move to this location, move to that location, instead of having a home base, because we got so many. It's been so many times where I build a range or build a training compound, and the moment we um, start gathering, we're getting injunctions, or we're getting threats.
So
So
what is their stated reason for this? Are they saying, "Oh, yeah, I have a permit to do this"? Like what reason are they using to keep trying to shut you down?
a complaint, they try to say that, see, in Charles County, where I was having these community events, that you can shoot on your own private property.
Mhm.
As long as you have a backstop, as long as you're not next to a school, as long as you're not shooting directly at a neighbor's house. I mean, common sense, to be
Right.
honest with you.
Yeah, yeah.
And and each time, none of those applied to us, but they still found a way to threaten us or threaten the owner of the property. The first owner, that we leased out, they threatened him with a $300,000 lien.
Wow.
And my lawyer eventually got that lien taken off,
Okay.
because it was ridiculous. All right, it was ridiculous. And then the second property that we leased out, um, same thing. They threatened the owner with a $300,000 lien, and the owner, he he buckled. He didn't want, and I don't blame him. He didn't want um, that kind of trouble. They they know how to really put their foot on somebody's neck and give
They're
them,
bullies.
don't
That's
give them
why.
much of a choice. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So
they're nothing more than bullies. That's what the government is in a lot of cases. They know that they can make people afraid to do what they don't want them to do. Like they threatened your wife. They knew that that was going to work, and I totally understand why
mhm,
it did. I mean, I would do the same thing, but it's just,
yeah,
but at least you're still out there fighting though. Like you're still doing your thing. Maybe you can't do everything that you want to do, but you're still in the fight. It's just
yeah,
ridiculous that they're trying to use the force of government to stop you from doing something that is so positive in your community for whatever political agenda they have. I don't know who's calling in these tips. For all I know, nobody's calling in these
we
tips
don't
and
know.
picking them up.
We don't know who's pulling the strings. We don't know how far it's going up, because at this point, I don't believe in coincidence. I don't believe in conspiracies. The facts of the matter is, I've been under investigation, and I've been a target ever since I picked up a AK-47 and started preaching freedom, love, unity, hope. These All these things that we know in the past history proves that when you start talking like that, start empowering the people, you get a target on your back.
It's a historical fact. It's
So
happened all throughout our nation's history. I mean, Fred Hampton comes to mind. I mean, that look what happened to him, right?
Fred Hampton, and just imagine, this is where I get, really upset. Just imagine if I was asleep, I wasn't up. I didn't see them, and they busted my door.
Mm,
First thing I would have did was grab my rifle
yeah,
and defended my home. And then mm, I think about Breonna Taylor.
yeah.
I think about Breonna Taylor. I mean, it could have went any way. It just happened to be we were already up, and we were able to get out the house. safely without them coming in while we were still inside. So
Yeah, when you brought that up earlier, and I can't remember the man's name, but I believe it was in Minnesota a few years ago. He was at it wasn't even his house. He was at his cousin's house, and the police had the wrong house. He was asleep on the couch, had his pistol next to him. They bust in the door, no knock raid. He gets up startled with his pistol, and then they kill him. And I'm so glad that didn't happen to you because just like you said, if what if you didn't wake up right away? What if you woke up right when they came into the room? All kinds of stuff could have happened, and it would have been horrible.
yeah, yeah, it's unforgivable, Jeff. It's unforgivable.
I mean,
Put my children at risk. You put my children at risk. You put my wife at risk. You know, you I am not I'm not going to allow anybody to silence me. I'm not going to allow anybody to to push me. Um, I'm going to keep fighting. I'm going to keep spreading the word. Let's keep spreading the message. I've been saying it like they just they just pissed me off. They pissed me off, and I feel like if you're not angry as a leader, you can't be a great leader. Because I'm more focused than I ever been. You know, I know what I need to do. I know that I need to continue to work. So
and it sounds like it's far from broken you. If anything, it's only strengthened your resolve. I can see it when we're talking, even when we talked on the phone earlier. I mean, I can just watch what I could,
yeah,
even if I didn't even know anything about you, I could watch one of your videos and tell, yeah, yeah, he got raided by the ATF, but he's not going to stop because I can, you can just tell the kind of person you are. So in light of that, so what are your plans for your continued advocacy and community work? Are there any other projects that are going to be coming up? I know you have to be careful because they're trying to shut you down, but what's coming up next for you?
I'm glad you asked that, Jeff. I'm actually going to go look at a community center tomorrow
Oh, okay.
to for the youth. We'll have youth programs. We will teach them self-defense. We will be teaching them how to safely handle firearms. There will be mentorships available. There will be um activities taking inner city kids out of the city and taking them on field trips. Um, and that will be an after school program. So I will be, of course, continue to work full time and doing the work I'm doing in the school system. But after school, I would like to do more, to 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 do more. So that is the next step for me. Yeah, I want to have my own community center, and and I want to normalize um educated um black firearm owners in the inner city. I want to normalize it more because yes, it has already become weird. We're like the majority now. I think during Corona, there was statistics showed that black women were the leading firearm
Yeah.
purchasers.
Yeah, I love that.
So that was like that was a big like wow. So you know, so
Well,
I just want to keep up the work, but that is the next step
I think it's making a
for me.
difference too. I mean, sometimes even just being a gun owner can influence other people. I mean, I mentioned I became a gun owner in 2021, and I'm originally born and raised in Southern California. They don't do guns like that. Now, my dad,
Yeah,
I shot my first gun when I was 10 years old out here in Louisiana, where I actually
mhm,
live now, and where all the black people are
yeah,
armed. I mean, yeah, all of them are armed. But
yeah.
my
True.
mom was deathly afraid of guns, and she knew I was thinking about it, and I did, and she was very concerned. But she saw me go through the process.
Oh,
She saw me go through the training and all that. I would tell her all about it. I showed her the gun, and now she's trying to hit me up, trying to get me to buy her a gun and get her trained. It's a
I went through the same thing. I got my mother was anti 2A. All right. We weren't allowed to play with toy guns, water guns.
oh wow.
Now my mother is my biggest supporter. Now she is legally armed. All my brothers, they are legally armed. My pops legally armed. None of us was in the past. We didn't even know what a permit was.
Mm.
So
There's a
that
change
is just
coming.
the change in my own, immediate family. Um, that is the change that's surrounding the community as well.
Awesome. Great. Well, I want to respect your time. I know you're busy, but I got to have you back on. Not even just about the ATF thing, but there's so much more I would like to talk to you about that we couldn't get into here.
Yeah.
Yeah, but before we sign off, why don't you let everybody know where they can find you, find your content, and support your work?
Mark Choppa, MarkChoppa on Instagram. Also have a link in my bio if you would like to support with legal fees, because the ATF, they are the feds. We don't know what they are up to. We want to make sure that we're protected and that our legal fees is paid up. So in the future, we will be prepared, because if they would have charged me with something, we would have been scrambling. Like I said, me and my wife, we hardworking people. We work 9 to 5. We don't have, hundreds of thousands in a bank account or offshore account to to go to war with the feds, right, in the courtroom. And the feds have bankrupt some of the wealthiest people. First thing they do is attack your funds. They have a 98% conviction rate. So if you would like to support, you can go to my Instagram, Mark Choppa. You can subscribe to my YouTube, Mark Choppa TV. And we are grateful. We are grateful for anyone that is listening, anybody who goes and follows, subscribe. And we are grateful for you, Jeff, for hearing our story and spreading it to your audience. Thank you.
You got it. And there's definitely going to be more. And to my audience, thank you guys for watching. I appreciate it. Please support Mark Chapa. Go to all of his links, support his stuff, help him out with his legal fund. And until next time, stay free, stay principled, and most importantly, stay ungoverned.